Morphin' time!
Tigersaur! Mastodon!
Pterodactyl!
Triceratops!
Saber-toothed tiger!
In
Tyrannosaurus!
1994, New Zealand's broadcasting regulator upheld a complaint against Power Rangers, and the show came off the air there. 9 years later, Power Rangers moved to New Zealand and started filming there. In 1995, Malaysia banned it outright over one word in the title. The word was morphin. Censors heard morphine, and the show came back retitled with the catchphrase taken out. In October 1994, broadcasters in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark took it off air within days of each other. And in September 2001, one episode of Power Rangers Time Force stopped being broadcastable overnight and has not aired in its original form on American television since. 5 decisions, 5 places, 1 show for 7-year-olds. Today, the complete file on banned, pulled, edited, and lost Power Rangers. And because this is the topic where fandom and the actual record come apart worst, I'm going to tell you out loud what kind of evidence every claim is standing on. Receipt, reported, or fan account. Where those 3 disagree, I won't be picking for you. Start here. It's the best evidenced item in the whole file. And mid-90s New Zealand looked at the most popular children's show on Earth and said no. On paper, here's how it actually happened. And it's more specific than the fandom tells it. The show went out free to air there in 1994. 4 formal complaints went to the country's Broadcasting Standards Authority. 2 from a kindergarten, 1 from a children's media watchdog group, 1 from a mother. And none of it was about gore. The finding was imitation, small children copying the martial arts in playgrounds, and a program that settles its arguments by fighting. The authority agreed, and TVNZ took it off. That paragraph is the top tier, not a wiki, not somebody's memory. A regulator's written decision with a case number on it in a public archive. Here's the part 1 rung lower. Every account I can find says it then stayed off New Zealand screens until around 2011. 17 years. The decision doesn't say that. A decision doesn't schedule the next 2 decades. That figure is the press and the fan record agreeing. It's still softer evidence than the sentence before it. And 17 years isn't a suspension. That's a whole nation's worth of our generation missing the foundational text of 90s childhood. Kiwi fans our age came to it late, sideways, on tapes and imports. And then, this story does the best thing anything in this file does. And it's waiting on the other side of this. Everything here is sourced, and where the record disagrees with itself, I'll say so, rather than pick a side. A video this size, 30 times, inside 1 month. That's the experiment, and 4,000 subscribers is the line we're trying to cross. Subscribing is how you put your thumb on the scale. Now, the ending. And it's the best punchline in franchise history. Years later, Power Rangers moved to New Zealand. From Ninja Storm in 2003 onward, it was filmed there for 2 decades. Kiwi crews, Kiwi locations, Kiwi casts. The regulator ruled against the show, and then the same country picked up the cameras. And here's where the honest version has a hole in it. I don't know why. Nobody has produced a document saying why the production moved. People assert tax incentives, or costs, or one executive's call, and every one of those trails ends at a fan wiki quoting another fan wiki. Admitted gap. The move is a fact. The reason is not. What I will say, labeled as opinion, is that somewhere in that shape is a lesson about moral panics. Give it a decade, and the thing you took off air is your export industry. And there are no villains in that. The complaints were made in good faith. The authority applied the standards it had. None of that has to be wrong for the ending to be funny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Angel Grove Martial Arts Expo!
And New Zealand wasn't acting alone. This is the bit that gets lost when the story is told country by country. 1994 was the year the world collectively panicked about Power Rangers. Not one regulator, lots of them, in different places, mostly not talking to each other. 2 Canadian stations dropped it that year. Parent groups in the United States were campaigning against it and getting airtime for it. Schools were banning the toys. Playground bans were a real, documented thing on multiple continents. And you have to remember the scale. Bandai were running 16 factories around the clock and still couldn't make enough toys. A $1 billion a year phenomenon aimed at 5-year-olds. When something gets that big, that fast, regulators look at it. That isn't a conspiracy. That's what happens. So the bans weren't isolated oddities. They were one global reaction, in different accents. Which is not the same as one decision spreading. This one we tell carefully, because at the center of it is a real child and a real family, and neither of them are content. It's also the best sourced item in the video. Not a wiki. International newspapers, reporting it in the week it happened. In October 1994, in Norway, a 5-year-old girl died after being hurt by other children. It's not our story to tell, and we're not going to detail it. The country was devastated, and in the national grief that followed, attention turned to violence in children's television. And Power Rangers, as the biggest and most fight-heavy kids show on the planet at that moment, became the focus of it. Broadcasters pulled the show almost immediately, and the pause rippled across Scandinavia within days, with Norway, Sweden, and Denmark all coming off air in the same wave. Now here's the part we're obligated to say clearly, and we're going to say it twice. The link was never established. Contemporaneous reporting at the time, in the international press covering the story, stated plainly that the show had not been directly linked to what happened. There was no confirmed evidence that the children involved had even watched it. And the broadcasters themselves did not claim otherwise. They described the decision as caution during a period of national grief. Not a finding, not a cause. Say it again, because 30 years of internet retelling has sanded this down. No link between Power Rangers and that child's death was ever established by anyone. And be precise about the shape of that, because precision is the only respectful thing available here. The question was never answerable, and it never will be. The show returned to Scandinavian screens later. The wider debate about children's television and imitation carried on for years, and this case became its most cited example and its most misreported. You will find videos and articles today that state the connection is fact. They are wrong, and they were wrong at the time. We include the case because it happened, and because it genuinely shaped the show's history across Europe. We frame it the way we do because a little girl's death deserves better than being a bullet point in a spooky banned episode's video. That's the difference between this channel and the content farms.
Locate Zordon.
It's morphin' time! Mastodon!
Now the one that sounds invented and absolutely isn't. Watch the wording, because this is the only case in the whole file that's actually a ban. Malaysia had a problem with the word morphin. In 1995, censors flagged the title, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Morphin is one letter from morphine, and this was an era of aggressive national anti-drug policy. The stated concern was a show whose heroes constantly shout something that sounds like a narcotic could be a negative influence on kids. So, it went off air. Receipt tier, and a good one, reported at the time by CNN and by Reuters. Not fandom, wire copy. And here's the part most people don't know. It came back. New title, one word shorter. Mighty Power Rangers. And the line itself, it's Morphin Time, the most famous piece of dialogue in the franchise, came out of the episodes with it. How it was taken out is a genuine disagreement in the record, and I'm leaving it as one. Some accounts say muted, some say cut. No document settles it, so I'm not telling you which. What everybody agrees on is the end state. There's a version of this show, watched by a whole country of kids, in which the catchphrase does not exist. One more detail, and this one is reported rather than documented. The country's education minister is described in the coverage as taking it personally, on the grounds that there was a fan in his own house. I'm not naming him. A wire service saying a man was annoyed isn't the man going on the record, and I'm not inviting you to sneer at anybody. A drug policy was in force, censors applied it to a title, the show adapted and carried on. New Zealand saw imitation, Scandinavia saw grief, Malaysia saw pharmacology, same 5 teenagers in a quarry. Then the category nobody thinks of. Episodes that became unairable retroactively. Power Rangers Time Force was on air in September 2001. A show full of city-scale destruction, filmed months earlier by people who could not have known. After the attacks, Time Force went on hiatus, and aired episodes were re-edited to remove footage of buildings imploding. That much comes from the show's own head writer, in an interview years afterwards. Attributed, on the record, from somebody who was there. Everything after this is a rung below that, and I'm flagging it before I say it. What follows is the fan account, not a receipt. Cross-checked for 2 decades, still not a document. The fan record says one shot was pulled, the Time Shadow Zord standing on top of two tall buildings, which read very differently in September 2001 than when it was drawn. And then there's the episode. Time Force Episode 3 is called Rancic Lives. The villain makes what amounts to a public threat, and a monster destroys buildings. It aired that spring, to no comment at all. Afterwards, according to that same fan record, it was pulled from the schedule. One repeat on Fox Kids 3 days later, edited on the fly, the villain's speech overdubbed by the theme song. And in later reruns, on the DVDs and in streaming, the sequence was altered, so the monster blasts mountains instead of buildings. I went looking for a memo, a press statement, a schedule listing, anything from 2001 that stamps that. Nothing. What I found is a fan archive telling the same story for 20 years, and a version you can watch right now where the buildings are mountains. I lean towards believing it. I'm not calling it proven. And here's the distinction the internet flattens. Nobody banned that episode. It was pulled from a schedule, then quietly re-edited. A pull is a programming decision. A ban is an authority forbidding something. Merging those is how the banned Power Rangers episode became a genre. So if you've ever asked whether there's a genuinely banned Power Rangers episode, that's the honest answer. Asterisk and all. Not a curse tape. An ordinary kids show episode the world made unwatchable in a morning, then quietly rewrote. It isn't spooky. It's sad. And mostly, though not entirely, documented. Here's what follows from all that. And it's bigger than any single ban. The show you remember and the show you can watch today are not always the same show. Start with the simplest example. American broadcasts of Mighty Morphin opened with a Today on Power Rangers teaser before nearly every episode. Those teasers were domestic. They were never on the international masters sent abroad, and when the show went to streaming, they were dropped from those copies too. If you remember that voiceover and can't find it now, you're not imagining it. Tear flag there too. Nobody at a studio published a memo about teaser cards. What exists is a fan preservation project that put two versions side by side and wrote down every difference. Real work. Also, structurally, the fan reckoned. Then the strangest one, and this one is documented. In 2010, a reversion of the first season aired, with a new logo and comic book graphics over the top. Sound effect bubbles, freeze frames, digital flourishes on the Zord fights. Same episodes, redecorated for a different generation. Fans were, to put it gently, unenthusiastic. It was pulled after 32 episodes. Add the ordinary churn of standards trims, music replacements, and sequence edits, and you have a preservation problem. There is no canonical Power Rangers. There are versions, which means your VHS tapes, the ones your mom threatened to bin, aren't clutter. In specific cases, they're the only surviving copy of a broadcast as it went out. The tribe's attics are an archive. Finally, the stuff that never aired at all. Exhibit 1, The Crown Jewel, the original unaired pilot, filmed in 1992, before anyone had commissioned anything, as the thing you show a network to prove the idea works. Different Trini, different tone, different everything. And here's what makes it lost media, rather than a curiosity. Its existence wasn't publicly revealed until roughly 6 years after the show premiered. 6 years of a hit series, and the version that got it made was in a cupboard. The Yellow Ranger in it was a martial artist called Audrey Dubois, and the reason she isn't the Trini we grew up with is completely ordinary. Accounts of how it ended vary, so I'll give you the most consistent one. Filming was in Los Angeles. She was living in Arizona. She asked for more money to cover relocating. They said no. Thuy Trang was cast instead. Sit with that. The most famous Yellow Ranger in television history exists because somebody wouldn't cover a moving cost. Exhibit 2. And this one's a proper vault. Zhu 2. Power Rangers was built on fight footage from a Japanese series called Zhu Ranger. The show got so popular so fast that Saban worked out they'd run out of Japanese footage before they ran out of demand. So, they commissioned more. Toei and Rainbow Zokei shot a fresh batch for the American show. Around 25 brand new monsters. That's Zhu 2. Footage of Power Rangers that only ever existed for Power Rangers, made in Japan, that no Japanese audience ever watched. And here's what nobody says out loud. Zhu 2 isn't its name. Fans called it that. There has never been a published inventory of what was shot, so the count you just heard is a fan reconstruction. Somebody's best count, not a studio ledger.
Switching to Megazord battle mode, now! Megazord sequence has been initiated.
Then the plan changed underneath it. Saban swapped the Dinozords for the Thunderzords in Season 2, which instantly made the giant battle half of that footage useless, because those fights were shot against the wrong machines. So, the editors bodged it. Monster attacking in one shot, the new Zords taking the hit in the next. We were 7. We didn't look. Chunks of the unused footage did surface online, roughly 20 years later. No curse. A production that outran its own supply chain. Right. Now we earn the fact-check badge, because the internet is full of fake Power Rangers lost episode lore. Cursed episodes, phantom banned in America stories, with no station, no date, no source. Creepypasta dressed up as production history. A whole genre where a spooky voice describes a tape that traumatized a test audience, invented on a forum in 90 seconds. So here's the rule of thumb. If a lost Power Rangers episode story involves anything supernatural, it's fiction. Every time. 3 specific ones, because these come up constantly, and all 3 are wrong. Power Rangers was never banned in the United States. It was protested, campaigned against, argued about on daytime television, and pulled out of a lot of playgrounds. No nationwide ban, no federal action. Nobody can produce the order, because there wasn't one. Scandinavia did not ban it permanently. The show came back, and the 1994 wave was not one country's decision spreading like a rumor. Different regulators, different reasons, different months. New Zealand's was about playground imitation. Malaysia's was about a word. Stitching them into one conspiracy is what turns history into content. And while we're counting, of everything in this video, exactly one case is a state banning a television program, and that's Malaysia. New Zealand is a regulator upholding a complaint and a broadcaster acting on it. Scandinavia is broadcasters pulling a show. Time Force is a schedule change and an edit. All 4 get called a ban online. One of them is, and here's why the fakes spread anyway, labeled as opinion. The real answers are boring to a search algorithm. Footage economics, regulatory decisions, music licensing, a different master tape for a different territory. None of that fits in a thumbnail. The banned episode they don't want you to see does. Labeled opinion, the true version is better, every single time. The fake stuff is only interesting for as long as you believe it. So, the complete file. A ruling that became a film industry. A tragedy that deserved careful telling and mostly hasn't had it. A drug name panic. An episode edited by history itself. A vault of footage in fragments and attic VHS tapes. And a running total of what I can't prove. Why the production moved to New Zealand. Whether the Malaysian catchphrase was muted or cut. Whether Rancic Lives ran exactly as the fan archive says. How much U2 footage was really shot? 4 questions, still open, and I'd rather hand you 4 honest gaps than one tidy story. Tribe reflection, labeled as opinion. Every generation has a moral panic about what its kids are watching, and everyone looks quaint 20 years later. The people who took Power Rangers off air weren't villains. They were frightened adults doing their best, and some of them had a point about the playgrounds. Worth remembering, next time our generation is certain about what the algorithm is doing to our own kids. Some fear is wisdom. Some is weather. Telling them apart is the whole job of being a grown-up. Comments, and I want an argument in there. Were you in a poll country or an edit country? And what did your version of the show cut? Kiwi viewers especially, tell us what it was like arriving late to the thing your country ended up making. And if you think I've undercalled the Time Force story, or overcalled it, say which. Every view keeps the checked version of history louder than the creepypasta. Off with you. Right, that's the video. If you're new here, the deal on this channel is simple. Everything we say gets checked before it goes out. No invented drama, no cursed episode nonsense, no lying to you for a thumbnail. Just the stuff we actually grew up on, told properly, by someone who was there. We're doing 30 of these in 30 days at the minute, chasing 4,000 subscribers, and every single view counts more than you'd think. So if you've got a correction, or a memory from back then, put it in the comments. We read them. Half the ideas on this channel came from someone in there going, hang on, you missed one. And there's another video waiting on your screen right now. Go on then.